part, I have no more energy left to be productive or to create. All my energy's gone in the direction of let me dig deep into the traumas and the dramas and what happened when I was a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and what happened yesterday. Yes.
So the other way that
I hope I'm at the right
energy
time.
vampire takes place is that we're looking for someone to hear me out and listen to my story. We're constantly looking for a free ear to listen how abandoned I am, to
Let me see if I got the correct
to
date.
see how much trauma I have. And oftentimes, as friends, we play this role for one another that I hear your story if you listen to my story. Oh, you think, and then we start getting into the next point that we're going to start comparing. Oh, you think you had it bad? Listen to my story. I had it one, and then the competition start taking place there. So come to yourself, be aware of this. When you have the need to have someone to hear your story, what is the need? So we have to resolve this, that why do I have the need for people to hear what I went through and how bad I have it? So I would say if we really want to
Hello
work
to all
on
of you.
this
Just waiting on Sudi for a second.
deeply, we have to recognize the needs, number one. The second part is now that I realize what the need is, how can I overcome that need? So how do you think we can overcome our needs?
So then what is the need here? What is the need that makes someone want to call around to feel heard by others so she or he can get validated about their traumas?
So what is the need? To be heard. To be heard and to be understood. That's the need. Now the question is, now that I realize this is a need, and I know that all needs create suffering. So if I want to end the suffering, I have to find a way to release that need. Neediness is another vampire thing. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. So all of these needs not only create suffering for me, also I have another need to pull other people into my story, and then it's for me to be the narcissist, that my lens is on me and is always me. How do I feel? What's in it for me? What am I going to get from this? Right? So now we have to find the tools how to overcome the need. And that's what I'm asking you. Do you have any tools that once you realize the needs to overcome the needs?
No. The only thing I found so far to release the need is that instead of looking for another person to hear me, to understand me, I am working on hearing my own self and understanding my own self.
Which is?
I don't know.
Yeah. So the way I look at the need, in order to release the need, I have to see where the need starts. So the need always comes from the part of the ego. When I look at my ego, I see my ego has so many layers, right? And I just did a Farsi live. It was about live, right? So when I want to live, who is the one who has this desire of living life fully. And to get to the person who is saying this, I have to realize that first I would always look at the ego and mind. I always recognize the ego and mind. So the ego is creating all these needs, right? So if I want to
They're just
release
added.
the need,
I don't. She didn't
have
receive
to
my messages.
separate
I'll just monitor until
myself,
she
my
realized
true
what's
self,
happening.
from the one who is have all these needs and
I gotta
creating
catch
all
up on
these
my work here.
So then again, we go back to my
Make some
two
printouts.
main practices: thought, cut, silence. Again, I keep repeating myself, but it's good to hear it over and over that your mind is not different than mine. Every human being mind operates basically the same, and we know scientifically today that our mind creates 75,000 to over 95,000 thoughts. So when I got this download of the practice of thought called silence, is at the beginning, the first word, when I notice that my mind is trying to get my attention and say, oh my God, I imagine that I have a scissor and I cut that word at the first word. Oh my God, cut. And what remains after that is only silence. And by doing this practice day after day after day, eventually we will find much more space that is silence. Because we are actually after the silence, that peace that is quiet, right? So thought cut silence was the first practice. And the second practice is from the minute when I wake up, I realize that the ego and mind has also waken up with me. So at every second, I see my ego as my shadow right in front of me. So in order to have that awareness, I need to be aware all the time. To have that awareness constantly, that the one who is feeling poor me is the ego, the one who's saying, who am I going to call now? Where am I going to find the ear to listen to me? Where am I going to tell the story how bad I have it and how broken I am and how many traumas I went through? I realize this is the ego, and then I separate myself from it. And we talked in our previous lives that we can look at the ego, we can just make it our inner child, right? We can make it just for an example. That now I am the parent and the ego is my inner child. Can we start acting as a grown up now? This story that I had is in the past. Do I need to be in the past, or do I need to live this moment fully? Because this moment is full. This moment is happening right now. And today in my Farsi live, I said, imagine yourself. Every day, you can imagine yourself that you're gone. You are looking at your body from higher above. This lifetime is over. And when you look at the story, how did you live your life? Did you live this moment fully? Did you see the things the blessings that are in your life? Or were you focused on what you don't have and what needs to get done? Are you after the fixing things at this moment, or are you aware of everything you have? And I gave an example. I said, when you imagine the fish, while the fish is in the water, the fish never understand the blessings that, oh, I'm a this water. At that moment, there is no consciousness in the fish that how blessed that fish is. Until the moment that something happened and the fish is out of the water and it start moving, and then it realized this is a moment of death. So what I was bringing to everyone's attention, I said, can we live every moment fully with blessings and what exists in our lives right now?
So in my personal example, yes, most of my time is focused on what do I need to fix versus what is already here, what is already perfect here. But my question comes from when something triggers us and makes us feel broken, and then the vampire comes and says, oh, you're broken, let's go fix it, let's find someone who can help us fix it, or let's focus on the fixing. If we take a step back at the very first moment of trigger, which is somebody says something or a situation happens, and the mind says, oh, you're broken. You're broken, this is why you're in this situation, right? How can we not blame ourselves so we don't even go into the need of, I need to be heard? Because the need that I need to be heard, I need to be understood comes from, oh, I'm broken, so I need to be heard. How can we not go into the I'm broken? You gave me a really good example the other day. You said, say, yes, because 20 years ago, I was,
Hello, how are you guys? You guys were really into it. You guys were so deep into the conversation. I was sending messages.
Sure. So you said to me that you will tell the person, 20 years ago, I was not awakened, so I was caring too much about my body, but now I have better things to do, right? If I'm in the same situation and something happens that makes me feel like I'm broken, how can I not feel broken? When a situation happens that makes me feel inadequate or not good enough, how can I separate myself? Because how can I separate myself from the I'm not good enough
Yesterday, I was doing a session with someone, and she was complaining about how a co-workers and everybody's against her, and they don't really want her there, and all of this stuff. And I said to her, I said, we have to remember, we have no control to tell other people how to behave. What I have control about is to be aware and conscious about how do I feel and what is the emotion that's being created, right? What other people do, try to we dive in soon, what other people do, the way they behave, whether they talk to you nasty or they start swearing at you or whatever, that's their karma. There's nothing we can do about it. But I can choose to take responsibility with how I translate their action and how do I behave. I need to learn to be watching out, be mindful about the translation of the mind. And also I have to be aware to be in control of my emotion, right? So when someone says something, and it triggers something in you, which you're aware by now that this is years of conditioning, instead of judging the way they're acting, I come to myself with love, fully love and compassion. Where's that person is coming from? I change the lens. Oh, that's years of conditioning and behavior. The only tools that this person has learned so far is to be yelling or to be nasty. That's the tools that this poor soul has find out. This is what is available to this person. I'm going to leave that alone. I come with love and compassion. And then I come to myself And I look, once I do this, the translation will change. Instead of me saying, oh, you were nasty to me, I have love and compassion for the other person. Therefore, the whole thing totally changes. And I don't have to do anything anymore. I just feel good about having compassion, understanding someone else.
My point was not about the someone else. My point was, okay, somebody says something, they trigger you. Imagine we are not blaming them. We're not saying why. We're not even pointing fingers at them. We start to point fingers at ourselves. Like in my personal situation, I go into really shaming and blaming myself and punishing myself.
Yes.
And then,
Hold on 1 second. I already answered that, Megan. Let's repeat one more time. When somebody is doing something and is triggering me, instead of the lens is on me, this person has been nasty or something, I change the lens to understanding the other person. Oh, this is year of conditioning and repeated behavior that this person only knows how to act this way. The lens is no longer on me, it's me turning the lens the other way around, understanding where that person is coming from love and compassion. Therefore, the lens is not on me to shame and blame anything.
But again, the person, let's make it more simple. I'm late for a meeting. Someone says to me, Megan, you're late and this is going to affect me in X, Y, Z. I understand their point. They have a fair point. That the part of them is now gone. They have a fair point. They're saying absolutely something that is right. How can I not turn on my own self of blaming and shaming, which would lead into I need to be heard.
I'm just listening to Sudi, Burnett. They're going to ask us to contribute here shortly, so just monitoring.
At this point, I need to have awareness about my conditioning. I use the awareness to understand that this has nothing to do with the old behavior and programming of shaming or beating myself up. This is about me to come to an understanding, oh, what do I have to do next time? Should I take more time? Should I give myself extra time? And I start to rebuild a different practice and behavior to not to give a reason to come back to myself and shame myself. Know the programming. This is what's active here. Right away, I go into blaming and shaming myself. So I need to bring the awareness here to stop the old pattern and behavior. Instead of translating, going into shame and blame, instead I change it and I said, okay, that's a valid information that's coming towards me. So I'm going to organize myself. I'm going to give myself more time. I'm going to do whatever not to allow. So you constantly need awareness to bring into the situation, not to get pulled into the old habits.
So the vampire here wants to take me into, oh, you're broken. Let's now put your energy into why you're broken. What you are saying is with awareness, instead of going into the past of why this happened, you go into creation of how can I create a situation where it doesn't happen, right? That's the difference.
You recognize the old pattern. You recognize the old pattern is going to use the shame and blame. Awareness stops the old pattern of going into shame and blame, and then I come to a new awareness that how can I avoid this in the future?
Got it. So you don't need to go into the reason of why it happened and going into blaming. You just become aware that, oh, the vampire is about to take me into blame and shaming myself and turning on my own self. Where I'm not giving into the vampire, I'm staying aware, and going into this was an old pattern, how can I create a new pattern?
Exactly. You need to have awareness that this is an old pattern, and by using your awareness, you're going to stop and you're not going to continue. Otherwise, it's going to be a never ending.
Yes.
Trito, welcome. We miss you. How have you been?
I've been well. I just came back from Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. I was pulled away from my incomplete vacation by my father, who was sitting right next to me here. I'm back.
Welcome to our therapy session.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. Very analytical, very Theravada Buddhism type therapy. That's what we do. We dive deep into the behavior of the ego and which way it pulls you different directions, and the lawyer that's in your head. So
The lawyer that's in your head who judges you.
That's right. That's right.
Trito, the topic today is you are an energy vampire and you didn't know that. So we were opening up layers of being an energy vampire. And I said one of them is poor me. You'll be looking for a ear to hear our stories over who's free, who's going to listen to me. What do you have? Well, how do we look at different ways of being an energy vampire?
So I'm assuming that we're talking about how we suck our own energy and keep ourselves from being fully who we are, to be our best self, our most effective and efficient self. Is that what I'm hearing?
Or how we being energy vampire towards others. What are the tools that our ego uses to be an energy vampire and suck in other people's energy?
So the practice in Buddhism, in the Theravada order, the school of the elders, the Buddha gave a discourse on the practice of the non-self. The non-self. So not me, not mine, not I. And then there's the practice of the dependent origination, which is the links of influence, of which earlier I caught a glimpse of it, which is tracing back to as young as we could remember how old we were and how did we become. The first question would be, how did I become this vampire that I'm sucking energy away from me and other people? And it's like, why do I feel the need to be loved? Why do I feel the need to love other people? Why do I feel the need to, just running, being heard, being validated, being respected, want to be seen, heard, and respected? Okay. So by tracing back the links of influence, each link, this is because that is because this is. That's how the links of influence work. And once we kind of trace that back one last time, even though it's painful, we realize that, for example, I'm angry because my father was angry and I was brought up around angry people and they yelled and screamed. And these are the things that I heard, was exposed to and absorbed in. And so therefore, this created the causes and conditions for me to behave this way. So with that links of influence being completed after a thorough review of one's life review, then we give you all the teachings on the non-self, which is not me, not my, not I. We start to deconstruct that those were not my feelings, those were not my thoughts, and that's not who I am, right? And to see ourselves as a visitor on this planet without making possession and taking things personally. We become a vampire because we take things personally. We take things personally because whatever they have done onto us in a particular and certain offensive way, then we make it my, you did that to me. My mother did that to me. She treated me unfairly in regards to my other siblings. She hit me. He abandoned me. My father abandoned me. Right? If you notice, those types of words will bring awareness with the ego, me, my, I. And also, you can also recognize that in other people with a mindful ear. When you start to hear me, my, and I in other people, they start to talk about my pain, my sorrow, my lamentation, my depression, That's now you know that the ego now starts to compound its suffering. So there is the natural suffering that came along with life, and then there is the suffering that you stack on top of it, which is the me, my, and I. So it's very important to recognize that within yourself and other people. And of course, that's how we leech onto other people, and we leech on in pursuit of love and wanting to be validated, seen, heard, and respected. And if this does not get resolved, then you will become a basket with like no, you know, a basket that has a hole in it. So it's just never ending of feeding, of searching, just like a hungry ghost, always wanting that validation. And when is it ever going to be enough to fulfill one's self-esteem, one's self-worth, one's self-concept? But the practice is very important, and it is very potent, and it is something that I did for 1 complete year here in Gainesville, Florida. I took a 1 year silent meditation so that I can trace back the links of influence, sit with the profound, hurtful silence necessary to make sense and meaning of my own past, and arrived at the conclusion. And I was secured in the knowledge that, got it, this was the making of Jidao. So when all of that science took place, and one comes to be secure in that knowledge cognitively, then you are very humble. It will humble you once you get to know yourself. And all of this talk,
Sat in silence for 1 full year. Sorry, I couldn't hold myself.
people can't hold themselves for 1 minute.
You did for 1 year?
Correct.
You were silent for 1 whole year.
I spoke to about 3 people and about 3 sentences.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
I feel so inadequate right now. What am I even talking about here?
If you ever notice the discomfort with the silence, is that why people always, once soon as they sit, their phone comes out. Once the phone comes out, they can't seem to just uplift their face from the phone. Why? Because they cannot sit with the silence. They need the continuous stimulation. Why the continuous stimulation? Because it's uncomfortable to sit with one's own thought and feelings because they never took the time to examine them. Like people ask me, they're like, Venerable Chidao, you look very young. You're so young. How did you amass millions of followers? Because I did the homework. I sat my behind down and I did the homework. And it's something that I teach the students, but with a very low graduation rate because they don't want to do the homework. It's too painful.
I had this conversation with someone. I said, why do you have the need to constantly talk? What is it? Are you aware that what is this need that I constantly have to be talking?
I can answer.
Yeah.
Because it hurts to sit with my own thoughts and emotions. It hurts.
But it doesn't matter because while I'm talking, I'm not still separated from my storyline. So even when I'm talking, I'm still repeating the story. But am I broken? How can I heal this? Oh, because of this is that happened. Oh, that person did this. So it's a constant ongoing. But what Trido is saying, or what I'm teaching in my practice is become comfortable with the silence. Become comfortable with not doing something. Yesterday, I tell you a story, funny story. Yesterday, I was doing this session with someone, and she's getting paid, and she said, I have nothing to do. They're not removing me. I'm not losing my job. I said, that's a blessing. She said, but I cannot be sitting. I said, you see how the mind can mislead us? You got a job that's paying you well, and they're telling you, they have nothing for you. Just be there. I said, why is this a suffering? She says, because I feel worthless. I feel I'm not doing anything. I feel like I'm not being productive. I said, so recognize these are all wrong associations of the mind. I have to be productive to be worthy. That's a wrong association. I said, separate these two from one another and ask yourself, why can't I just be in peace and in silence? Why can't I just use this time, 8 hours I'm sitting here? Why can't I use this time to do the practice of thought cut silence, to separate myself from the ego? And then I can be, my worthiness doesn't come from, you know what I'm saying? Our mind associates things and connect things together that are irrelevant. My worthiness doesn't come from me being active. I said, but understand underneath these, there is an active mind that is constantly telling you you have to be moving. So when is it a good time to stop listening to the mind and to come to this peace? Because I told her, I said, the level of your anxiety is so much that is just coming to me. I said, she kept on biting on her lips. She kept on moving, being uneasy. I said, let's start this right now. Just calm yourself down. Be calm. Calm and relax your body. Work on your breath. And don't think that being quiet, being silent, it's something scary. We have to change the meaning. How nice it is to be able to sit down and not to engage with the thoughts. Let the thoughts come and go and don't engage with it. Just sit and watch the thoughts. Silence, guys. Do you see this? How effective this live is? We all became silence. Let's celebrate this. Today I was talking about how would it be? I know it's off the topic, but today I said, how would it be if we all wear love glasses? And I said, this could be, this a couple of people wrote a comment, where can we buy it? I said, I don't know, it's not out there, but we can invent it. Imagine from the minute that we wake up, we put a glass that is all love, the projection of love. Every person, every animal, every nature, everything we just projecting love, and we seeing through the lens of love. Do we still judge people? Do we still judge our past and poor me and what happened to me? Try to wear the lens of love. After all, I know this become a cliche. We are all love and light. Let's practice it. Let's be the love.
The best
Yeah.
the best way to inspire other people is by and through our own change. So it does take a lot of modeling behavior in order to be the opposite of the energy vampire. And once a person has done their homework, then they radiate, they're radiant, and they expound this force field of welcoming, non-judgment in society. And you just walk past someone and they turn around and like, oh my God, who is that? Who is that human being? Um, I went overseas and there were these two monks that radiated that, and I sat from very far. Both of them, I was very far away, and I was able to feel this peace. That the radius was literally like 1 block radius, and that's one heck of a radiance that I would say. Um, but the other thing to bring to awareness in today's talk is people just need to give up and just renounce, give up, and just throw your hands up and just surrender. Because the problem is, you know, I counsel people in their 60s and 70 years old because they keep on siding with the lawyer in their head. And the Theravadan order, we're very strict. And so when once we start to identify their ego, because we are masters of the mind, we tell them, listen, stop, just come over here. And once a person have renounced and given up, they go into a monastery and we just make them sweep the floor. We make them do all these odd things that are very slow, very boring. because now this is the start of them conditioning them, the start of conditioning them to be comfortable with the silence one step at a time. Then we get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty stuff. But I think that's a very important to tell people. Number one, how well is that working out for you? Number two, you've been playing this game with yourself, by yourself, and to other people for how long? That has costed you all these relationship, pain, sorrow, misery. And if you were to die tomorrow, how much regret will you have on your plate? And people never stop to really look at that. They're like, I offended this, I cheated, lied, and stole. Oh well, that's part of life. And if karma gets me, I'll be hiding over here in Antarctica. No, darling, karma never forgets an address, and it might come faster than you think, and they just keep on running. So we us teachers can only make people think, and blessed are those who come to that realization quickly and give up. And then once you're under a care guidance of an authentic teacher, experienced teacher, do what needs to be done and just resolve it one last time, because it's tiring carrying. It's tiring being that vampire and not even knowing that you are that vampire to yourself. And one of the fun way to identify, how do I know I'm a vampire? Simple. Two things. Look at how much you complain and look at how many preferences you got. So if I turn off the AC up in this room and you start complaining how hot it is, boom, there you go. First evidence. First evidence you got right there already. So just imagine if I put 5 people in that room with no AC. Guess who's going to be sucking all their energy away? You. Because you're the one who's saying, oh, it's really hot in here. I'm hot. I'm sweaty. I've been running all morning. Once again, back to the eye. My clothes are going to get sweaty and smelly. My. Me, my, and I. 1, 2, 3. Very simple. These are so simple to figure out. People just never sat there and listened to themselves.
I pin a question from Reflection. She says, sometimes people around us want the old person back. Okay. So I'm going to start answering you, love. Outside is always busy. Outside is one thing after another. I have no control over what's going on outside. The only person that I have control over is me. Today I said, I'm gonna work on myself for you, and you're gonna work yourself for me and for everybody else. The only responsibility I have is to work on myself, to be at the highest vibration, and not to be an energy vampire, suck everyone else's energy out, right? So it's my responsibility to work on myself. Now, what other people want from you while you're changing, it's their liking. Where are you with yourself? You're not powerless. You are a powerful human being who can make a decision every second who you want to be, how you want to be, right? So I know when I changed, I separated from my whole family. I don't talk to my family. I don't call them up. I have nothing to do with my family because I understood the dress that I was wearing, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago. It was the dress that they put on me. It was from my childhood. My mother was like, "Oh, you're the most beautiful. You're the smartest. Don't be like this loser. Don't be like these people." And saying that to me continuously made me wear this suit that I have to be successful, and I run for many, many years. I never felt comfortable in these suits, and I didn't know why. And then I became a personal trainer, and I put on a different suit. But I didn't feel good. I didn't feel comfortable in that dress either until I came out to be putting another suit, which was a healer. The old suits It was tight, it was uncomfortable. I was really trying to make it fit right, but it never did because it wasn't my dress, it wasn't my choice, it was what my family wants, it was the history of my background that everybody's educated in my family, everybody's blah blah blah. But that wasn't my story, right? So you need to ask yourself, do you want to wear a suit
Bailey, sit down.
that you feel comfortable in? Or do you constantly want to look outside to see what suit is it suitable for them to put on you? You have a choice. Take your power back and be authentic, be who you want to be. Otherwise, you're going to suffer again. Back to you guys. Try though, is this suit that you're wearing feeling comfortable? I can see your suit today because your phone is showing more the top part. We can't fully see your suit. Are you feeling comfortable in your suit?
Yeah, I picked up these pair of robes in Vietnam that was made in Myanmar, and it was Egyptian cotton. It's like silk and cotton mixed, but it's not this one. It's a burgundy. Oh man, I've never been so attached to robes before in my life. Attachment causes suffering. And then I tried to get more, and they sold out. It was so cheap too. It was like $35. But
And
yet,
after all, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
um, and then the Buddha taught us to look at our faults and to start addressing our faults and not to compare ourselves to other people in life, because part of being a vampire is we also compare and we criticize other people. That is a habit, and habits commonly seen in people who are just just vampires to themselves and other people and not even know it. So if you catch your behavior of comparing yourself, criticizing other people, or hide behind a username and just constantly attack other people, cyber attacks, then one should really heed the advice of the wise. And the Buddha humbles us by telling us, don't be looking at other people's faults. You got your own, work on them, because everyone's got faults, including me, including me. Sometimes you have more than others, and vice versa. And that humbles people. That makes people return back themselves to the practice. And the Buddha taught us do what needs to be done, study what needs to be studied, and practice what needs to be practiced. And he emphasizes time and urgency. And he says the problem is we think we have time when we in fact don't. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's coming back to when I said my only responsibility or job is to work on myself. I used to see a lot of faults in me. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't this enough. I wasn't patient enough. I wasn't this enough. And it was a lot of not being enough till one day I realized that, oops, this doesn't make me feel good. Once I'm putting it the lens to find out, it's just like some of us put the lens in our childhood, traumas and this or that. Some of us put the lens on, I should be better, I could be better, I could be doing this or that. Because many, you guys have heard my story, you know that I got diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Nothing was right. I was never good enough, nobody else, and I suffered. And I tell you guys, I really suffered because it didn't matter how much appraisal I got from outside, it wasn't enough. I never became enough. And one day I realized, let's end the suffering. There is another way. I could just stop looking at my faults, stop thinking that I could be better, I need to be better. How about if I just accept myself the way I am? Some days I have energy, okay. Some days I don't. Some days I'm full of love and I want to give everybody love. I don't know what am I going to do with all this love that's coming out. Sometimes I get angry at something and I hate them and I want to beat them up. So it is what it is. I'm a human being. Just to accept that we are human beings and we need to be kinder to ourselves. Megan, you're awfully quiet today. Did Trido send you an energy of quietness, or are you
Yeah.
start practicing mindfulness and listening more, the art of listening?
Yeah, I try to definitely send me that energy. Like the moment you said 1 year of silence, I watched myself not being able to stay silent and having the need to ask you if you literally were silent for 1 year. Like I couldn't even stay silent while you were speaking, right? And watching myself do that, I suddenly released the need of wanting to speak.
Oh, see the effect you have on people, Trido. That is so wonderful. That's why we all love you, Trido.
Well,
And try to, I speak for a living.
yeah,
Making me want to not speak has not been an easy thing for anybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it.
As Megan, go ahead.
I think in our lives, and I was that person who was a vampire, admittedly, and to always seek things outside of myself and criticize others. I mean, everything I have said, just turn it back on me because I once did it. That's how I know. So it's not like I read a bunch of books and I'm going to sit here and tell you what I read out of the books. But these are things that I did, admittedly, and it was very humbling to catch my behavior after I hit rock bottom before becoming a monk. I hit rock bottom and was on a suicidal path, which is what led me here. And I was off the chain. I was off the chain. I was doing all these odd behaviors, high risk behaviors, and I was just like, I'm really tired of suffering right now, working myself to death. Everything I did was trying to like self self harm. Taking that. And when I took that 1 year retreat, and so it's like, who did I talk to, right? Well, I just spoke in my journal. I kept a journal to write about my meditation experience, my thoughts and feelings, how what's going on with this feeling today. Very important on the subject of meditation on feelings, which is Vedana, um, which is also known as sensations and feelings. Notice that it is moment to moment. It changes, and our thoughts changes moment to moment. And that's what meditation does, is it teaches you how to be ultra mindful of this cycle of how things change so rapidly based upon conditions in our environment. And I observed myself for 1 year, um, of that. Is the best way to know yourself is to keep a journal and to sit in silence and to really use your intelligence and analyze yourself. Basically, you're teaching yourself to be your own doctor, your own cognitive psychologist, because philosophy says if you are not your own doctor, then you are a fool. And how many people go out and pay for therapy and therapists just to come back to the same circle and sometimes wind up even worse. And but I did it. It can be done, and it can be now. My program, it can be done in 6 months rather than 1 year, if you would commit to it, because the teacher have found out a way to do it quicker, faster results. And the other thing that, how do you all know I'm telling you all the truth? Is because you look back, right? Because people can say a lot of things out there in the spiritual realm, but when you analyze the after my 1 year meditation retreat, I've been on social media for about 7 years, and you go back 7 years, 7, 8 years ago, on or around there, and you see that I like to sit in silence and meditate in silence with no one else around me. Live. These are live recordings. Like, you can't make this up. It's not like I took a video and then just keep on repeating, uploading all day, every day. But I sat there with just like profound silence, and I was just very happy not speaking anymore, and only speak what needs to be said, and under the guidelines of right speech in the Noble Eightfold Path, being a noble person, becoming a noble person, and whatever comes out of one's mouth need to be noble. That means it needs to be true, correct, beneficial for all parties involved, beneficial for you and for them, and is the timing of this speech correct? Um, and so years later now, I use this art of deep listening to help people, not to judge, to assess and evaluate people. And that's one thing I do. You always catch me if you ever show up to my of me being invited somewhere. You will notice this very serene, profound silence of listening with my eyes, listening with my ears, trying to make sense of what is happening. Because in that moment, I'm the student. Matter of fact, I sat and listened to both of y'all before I even went live, and I was just like, "Oh, God, this is even more wonderful." Sudi doesn't know that I'm watching her, so I'm just gonna pay attention to administrative monk stuff here, and then just practice deep listening to also get a baseline of who's here today, what are we talking about, where can I contribute that is most beneficial for all parties involved. So it's a beautiful guideline that the Buddha left us because it eliminates idle chatter, idle talk. And it's so annoying, right? When we drive in traffic, especially here in Florida, when we look to our left and we look to our right and we see this. We see that, right? Right? And
Yeah.
we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there as a monk, and it's like, what goes through the mind of a monk when he's observing people not being mindful in driving? And it's like, what could be? It's like Tom, Dick, and Harry, Susan, Karen, Rebecca. Is it what is it in this moment in your car could be so important to yell and scream and laugh that you were willing to risk your life and the life of other people on the road, because we all know the most dangerous thing you can do in one day is driving. And people are not even mindful of that. They think that they're in this steel box with glass, that you're safe and sound and you're impervious to damage. You're not. So it's like it's funny when you're a monk, your whole perspective, change, and you just see. And once I hopefully I get to meet all of you and share the profound silence. When you sit with the teacher, uh, and you don't have to speak much. You just come with your meditation cushion and you speak with your eyes, and all the eyeballs look at each other and they realize now we have arrived and paradise is found.
Heaven on earth. So, Trito, can you say the 4 characteristics of a noble speech again?
Yeah, anyone can look it up. It's called Right Speech, and it is found in the Noble Eightfold Path. Right Speech, Noble Eightfold Path. And is it true? Is it correct? Is it beneficial? And is the timing of the speech also skillfully timed?
So, does it mean that every word we speak should have all these 4 characteristics: truth, correctness, beneficiality, and timing, right timing?
You would make less enemies if you follow this guideline, because
So let me say something. You said a lot of people, myself included, spend a lot of money on therapy and go in circle, right? If I were to ask myself that when I have the need to speak to an expert, is it true? Is it correct? Is it beneficial? And is the timing right? I should never speak to a therapist, because what you say during a therapeutic session is not necessarily true, because you're basically vomiting out your egoic shames and all the guilt that you're dealing with. Is almost never correct, because it's coming from the ego. I know hundreds of people who've been in therapy for many decades, and they haven't made much progress. So beneficiality, maybe not. And timing, So that really negates the need for therapy.
Yeah.
I want to try though, before you say that, I want to add something here, which is oftentimes people think in talking and asking questions, they can get help. What's missing here is a lot of time people don't listen and hear. People are often, they always think when somebody's talking, they're not present enough, they're not really listening. And I see that constantly when I talk to other people. When I say something very small that is so profound, they come with the next question. And I have to stop them then. And I said, this was very deep. The way I see they move on, I realized that they didn't get it. So we have to unlearn that while we're talking and asking questions, even though we're getting the advice, we're not present, we're not hearing what the other person. So this is what also something else that we need to add to our practices. You don't learn by talking and asking questions.
Mhm.
You learn in silence and deep listening.
Yeah. The other thing is school doesn't really teach us how to think. And that sounds a little funny, and people don't know how to think. I mean, I didn't know how to think, so that's why I studied cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive just means thinking. Um, and so yeah, so that's why people go on this rampant this of asking questions, and they're not really slowing it down to really think what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, who they're addressing to, the qualified person that they're talking to, and whether or not it makes sense to them and makes sense to other people. Um, what is that noise? I don't know where that noise is. Um, and so it's so yeah, you really have to slow them down, and a skillful teacher would catch the habits of someone who interrupts constantly, who ask a lot of questions, and it really not connected to what's going on right now. They feel the need to know, feel the need to know. They're hungry for knowledge, but they haven't really slowed down to realize this question even makes sense right now. I still work in society as a monk. I returned back to work as an interpreter. Now I have 18 years of clinical experience in law and medicine and social work. So when I get someone that like argues with me, and I said, stop, you argue with me. Anyone that argues with me argues with other people in society. And they stop right away, and they like look at me like, oh my God, who is this guy? And then there's certain people that interrupt the process of what I am doing, whatever it is that I was doing. Like I was at the DMV yesterday, and I'm trying to encounter the clerk, and a relative of the client told me, you should sit and encounter the clerk. So we already have OCD going on here, which is control. One of the primary thing about OCD is control. Or we can take the OCD out and just say that this woman's got control issues and control factors in her life. There's lack of control in her life, so therefore now she's trying to control me. I mean, I don't care who stands, who sits, but I picked it up within a split second, and then I realized after like maybe 180 seconds later, I realized what she was trying to do. I have to take control just because there's only one captain here on this ship, and we're either going to do this correctly, thoroughly, and smoothly, or we're going to do it your way, Karen. And your way is going to mess everything up about what we're doing here and creating all sorts of stress and high blood pressure right about now. So I says, excuse me, can you sit and just remain quiet and let me just take care of what I've been doing this for 18 years, okay? Sit and just observe. And she just sat and just like be quiet. So, and you see this in common too in areas of law. lawyers who are like senior trial lawyers. I first start when I observe and shadow underneath these guys, and I'm like, you're so arrogant, you're so ignorant, and I'm like, that's so rude to people. But I'm not in their shoes. I'm not in their shoes. I'm not a lawyer. But then when you sit with them for 18 years, you realize how they do things, and they will let people speak and describe the problem, and once they understand the problem, they will tell the client how we're going to fix the problem. And they just stop everyone from talking at that moment. And that's all they say. And, we just had a lawyer that passed away, Simon Tasang. And he says, I understand your problem. And right now, I'm going to tell you how we're going to fix the problem. I'm going to explain to you in exactly 7 minutes. And within that 7 minutes, we're going to conclude. And if you have any questions after that, and less than 10 minutes, make a decision because I'm going on to the next case. So they structure it in a way so that it detains the mind of the person who is in need of instruction and directions because they're very lost. I understand when people are in trouble with the law. And so, and yeah, it's such a way. So, experienced teacher, now these are like common trademarks of a teacher, that they know how to detain another person's mind, also known as taming the mind, so that they can just hold you in the present moment right now, in enlightenment, in nirvana, to give you instructions on what needs to be done. The impression needs to be of such a way that they feel it. Their heart is moved by such gesture. Their heart is moved. The whole experience needs to be so moving that they're like, oh my God, who is this man or who is this woman? Oh my God, who is this Sudi? Oh my God. Okay, well, I guess I need to just, put my old ways and my old days away and just follow her instructions and have at it. So, I think this was really good talk when Sudi brings me from time to time, because I change as a human from time to time and I change as a teacher from time to time. And I don't think Sudi ever heard me speak in this way before. It's very direct now. It's like very direct and very clinical.
What has Thailand done to Trido? I was in awe of Trido.
I think when I started with Sudi, I was still a very young man in my own mind, and I was just like deer in a headlight, and I'm just like, what's happening here now? And time passes by, years and years pass by, and now it's like I think she's watching. I see Sudi as like a mom to me. She's like a spiritual mom to me, and rightfully so. I am, could be her kid with my 37 years young on this planet. So it's like now, I think Sudi's one and only that got to like measure my progress. I mean, if she was to write in her journal or talk to her peers and be like, oh, what? Yeah, tried out definitely is short, concise, and to the point versus years ago when we had him on our show.
Oh my God, Trido! I remember our first lives that Trido was going, and I have to get you and bring you back here, and then Trido will go, and I have to grab him. Of course, I remember we did a series of relationships. Do you remember that I was diving deep into relationships, and
Yeah.
you were always telling me, "Oh my God, if I knew you beforehand when I was in a relationship, that would have ended so much of my suffering." But
Yeah.
yes, Trido, you have moved. I pinned a question. Zina asked, but when we cut the thought, we can feel the pain in the body. What should we do? I'm going to dive into it, Trido, and then you and Megan can come in. When we cut the thought, we separate ourselves from the thought, then the body feels the pain, right? Is that what you're saying? The first thing needs to come to your awareness, my love, that who is the one who's experiencing the pain in the body. If you separate it from the thoughts, it's still the thought who's experiencing the pain. Therefore, I'm not totally separated from the mind. Oops, 11:11, guys. Time just kicked in 11:11. Yes, portals open to heaven, right? So the pain in the body is being experienced with the mind, right? Now the body, the ache in the body, it also comes, is still connected to the storyline that poor me, this is my life story. I went through so much trauma and suffering. And I said, after a while, the physic becomes another mind. The physic, after years, repeated habits and patterns, it becomes a mind by itself. So what I'm hearing again, I'm under assumption that I'm separated from the thought, but actually I am not. This is the physic that doesn't want to hold on, wants to hold on to the story that I was broken, I was hurt, there is so much pain and suffering in the world, it happens to me. So what we need to do is we need to repolish the physical body. We have to make the body feel safe. The body aches when it feels that something is haunting it, is under a trauma. Once I learned to let go of the story, not attached to the story and poor me, all of these things has happened to me, the body feels renewed and you regain a different body. Back to you guys.
Before I dive into that, I forgot to answer um, Megan's question about the right speech, right? Right. So is this something that requires number one, catching our habit of public speaking or just speaking in general, how we encounter humans every day, what we encounter them, the what, when, how, where, why, and then to sit with it. I think that I sharpen my skills in public speaking and speaking in general. Um, sharpen them because I belong to a very strict order. This order dates back the timeline of the Buddha. We are the originals. It started with us. And then the other thing is my TikTok has a lot of videos, and I have never been called out on a teaching. At 84,000 teachings, and I dissent or assent to it, no one's ever called me out on it. And then my job as an interpreter at the courthouse for 18 years, law and medicine. No doctor, lawyer, or judge have ever called me out and said, you need to come back because you said something and we have issues with that. So I think my whole life, I had to really slow things down and figure out how I'm going to do my job right and do as I was trained. So for all of us under that right speech element, just take some time. And I think the review for our viewers to review the memories and times where your speech got you in trouble and learn from that. And then how we proceed on forward using those elements would require some creativity, creativity on one's part. Again, if you follow the guideline carefully, methodically, and meticulously, you would make less enemies. That means enemy to oneself first and foremost, nonetheless enemies of other people. It's easy saying the wrong thing, and what you want is short, concise, to the point, so that they also see that you are mentally intact, that you are mentally disciplined. um and then my father, who just like walked right past by earlier, he's also a very clinical type of professor. He received a law degree, sits here, and he spends like a couple minutes with people, just like those lawyers that I was telling you. He's short, straight to the point. He doesn't want to speak much, and he says, I only speak to those who want to spend money. So after he speak, they better reach for their wallet, because he's done after like 5 minutes talking to them, explaining immigration law, which is like it could be lengthy. So he has to like shorten that up. But yeah, I just invite
So
you to just Yeah, I just invite you guys to just just dive into that right speech under the noble eightfold path. I find it just awesome because wars are started in the world because of wrong speech. Look at Hitler. Hitler was able to amass millions of people by and through his speech, the power of words. Like, oh my God.
It's the can you repeat one more time? It says right speech under noble what path? I'm not catching it.
Eightfold path, noble eightfold path.
Noble eightfold path.
Right.
Okay.
So basically, yes. Go ahead.
Do you want me to address that last question too on the thought and feeling thing, or you want to jump in? Because I.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. I just don't want to forget our viewers' questions. That's what keeps them going. We think the way how we feel. We feel the way how we think. Meditation gives us warning signs when we get angry, for example. Anger is very prevalent. Anger is very common. And it's like, how do you know when you get angry? Well, your senses were open. The Buddha called it the 5 doors. 1, 2, 3, 4. Touching, and then the mind is number 6. 5 or 6 doors. Okay. But so when our senses are open, so be mindful when your eyes are open and be mindful when your ears are activated, because now information start to come in. And once information comes in, there's a thought. And based on that thought, a feeling will arise. So I took anger as an example because we can typically detect anger fastest if we pay close attention to our breathing. The physiological responses of breathing give rise to something is unwell right now. You're trying to fight or flight with the situation. And of course, the veins popping out of your neck and the sweaty palms, paying attention to physiological responses. The best way to understand mind and feeling correlation, first and foremost, from a clinical psychology standpoint, is to look up cognitive behavioral therapy, because it teaches that. We think about how to feel. We think the way how we feel the way how we think, thus leading to the behavior. And from a Eastern Buddhist perspective, you would want to look at the 4 foundations of mindfulness, particularly mindfulness of feelings, because it will draw from there. It will give the academic and clinical aspect of there. But that's my short answer to that.
Yeah, thank you. So to wrap this up, guys, we kind of need to talk less. Let's start to talk less. The minute the urge comes that I need to speak, I catch myself and I say, you don't have to talk right now. Let's choose silence. We have to definitely train our ears to be a better listener. Remember this phrase, when you're talking, you don't learn. Even though you think you're after the knowledge and you're asking an expert for a question or why, since you don't have the ability to hear well, it's not going to help you. None of that knowledge is going to sink in while you're too busy talking and even have a curiosity to know. The knowingness doesn't come from outside. The real knowingness is within you. Everything that I talked about doesn't come from a book, doesn't come from listening to someone else. It's the inner knowing. That inner knowing needs silence. So embrace the silence from now. Quiet yourself down as much as you can. Train your ears to be a better, deep listener. And from then on, you see that you're never going to get in, like Trideo said, you're not going to get into trouble if you're fully present. The third part is to relax the body as much as you can, because once you're anxious, your speech starts speeding up. You're not hearing yourself, what you're saying. How many times have you catch yourself? I ask you later on. You said that during this conversation. Did I say that? I'm not aware that I said that. What does that mean? You're not present. You're too anxious talking. You're too anxious being active, and you're not hearing and listening. Relax the body, slow yourself down, grab your attention, become mindful, and then take the next step and the next step. Slow yourself down. Anything else to wrap up this live, guys?
No, you all have been
Thank you.
wonderful contributors. Thank you for having me, and I learned from both of you and your questions.
Love to have you both. Thank you so much. See you all next week, guys. By the way, before we wrap up, this coming Sunday, I know it's a short notice, Megan and I and Rahab, Karina Jackson is having an event here. It's going to be an amazing journey to go within. If you're interested, this event is taking place in Malibu. You can text or DM us, and we hopefully will see you then. You don't want to miss this event. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Love you all. Bye-bye.
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 Take care.
Take care. Absolutely amazing. Love you all.
Okay, that concludes today. I know you guys had questions on here. Everyone's just saying hi on YouTube. Both Facebook deactivated by themselves. And awesome. Thank you all for joining here on YouTube. Awesome. Let me see here. Just want to review some questions. Cool beans. We'll be out at the beach later doing meditation, and so see you all then out there today at 7. Can't wait. Till the next time. Thank you all for joining and being wonderful listeners. Going to deactivate and get some administrative stuff that I have to do. Thus the paperwork that you all seen. So end of the day. Take care. Oh, and by the way, for all where to start studying the Four Noble Truths, you can go to buddhanet.net, buddhanet.net, and I belong to the School of the Elders, Theravada, and you can look up the Four Noble Truth then. Okay, buddhanet.net.